Exactly at 4:15 a.m. on Thursday, October 16, 2025, a U.S. military operation in the Caribbean Sea ended in an unexpected way. For the first time, there were survivors among the crew of a vessel attacked by United States forces. The incident, confirmed by a senior Department of Defense official on condition of anonymity, has generated a wave of questions both inside and outside Washington. The attack was executed by a naval unit of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force Command, recently designated to lead counter-narcotics operations in the region. According to initial reports, the offensive targeted a ship suspected of transporting drugs originating from Venezuela, intercepted in international waters northeast of the Antilles. The attack began at 4:15 a.m. and lasted just over 7 minutes. In that time, 2 AGM-114 Hellfire air-to-surface missiles were launched from an MQ-9 Reaper drone, operating in semi-autonomous mode under a secure satellite link. Initial thermal images leaked to Allied intelligence analysts show a vessel about 25 meters long, approximately 82 feet, hit in the stern, followed by a secondary explosion caused by fuel stored on board. Despite the violence of the attack, at least 3 crew members survived, an unprecedented event in the recent campaign of attacks against alleged narco-terrorists, as the Pentagon officially calls them. So far, it is unclear whether the operation was planned to allow for survivors, or if it was a failure in the fire sequence. What is known is that a U.S. aerial rescue team arrived at the impact zone approximately 43 minutes after the attack, when the vessel was already partially submerged. Since then, the whereabouts of the survivors have not been disclosed. In Washington, the Pentagon issued no official comments, while State Department sources merely confirmed that the operation responded to legitimate national security objectives. However, this attack marks a turning point. Until now, the 14 similar operations executed since July had resulted in a total of 27 deaths, with no reports of rescues or captures. The difference lies in the context. In recent months, President Donald Trump has intensified his rhetoric of a war on Venezuelan narco-terrorism, asserting that groups linked to cocaine trafficking operate under the protection of the Nicolás Maduro regime. To justify the attacks, the White House disseminated videos on social media showing the bombings, in which the vessels were completely destroyed. Nevertheless, this new incident raises legal and diplomatic doubts. According to international law experts consulted by Reuters, if the crew members survive and are in U.S. military custody, they could be considered prisoners of war, which would oblige the United States to apply the Geneva Conventions. Meanwhile, the search for debris continues. Space Force reconnaissance satellites have detected metallic fragments floating about 12 kilometers, about 7.5 miles, from the impact point, in coordinates close to the limit of Venezuela's exclusive economic zone. The exact location suggests the attack may have occurred within disputed waters, which has already triggered Caracas's diplomatic response. Indeed, the Venezuelan ambassador to the UN, Samuel Moncada, sent an urgent letter to the Security Council, requesting the body to declare the U.S. operations illegal and violative of national sovereignty. The letter, dated the same day as the attack, denounces a campaign of systematic aggression against Venezuela and calls for international condemnation. At 6:02 a.m. on that same Thursday, October 16, 2025, barely 2 hours after the attack, the Pentagon activated an emergency follow-up protocol. This involved RQ-4 Global Hawk reconnaissance drones, a P-8A Poseidon anti-submarine aircraft, and 2 Seahawk helicopters deployed from the destroyer USS Preble DDG-88, which had been patrolling the area since the previous day. The mission, to verify the result of the attack and confirm the neutralization of the target. The RQ-4 Global Hawk is a strategic reconnaissance drone designed to fly at high altitude, above 18,000 meters, about 59,000 feet, and cover enormous expanses of the ocean for more than 30 hours without interruption. Its function in this operation was to capture real-time thermal and radar images, tracking any remnants of the attacked vessel or signs of life on the surface. Thanks to its SAR, synthetic aperture radar, it can detect objects as small as a speedboat several kilometers away, even in adverse weather conditions. The P-8A Poseidon, derived from the Boeing 737, is an aircraft specialized in anti-submarine warfare and maritime surveillance. It is equipped with magnetic sensors, deployable sonobuoys, and anti-ship missiles. In this mission, it acted as an aerial control link, coordinating the sweeping of the area and transmitting data to the Pentagon's command center. Finally, the MH-60R Seahawk helicopters, deployed from the USS Preble DDG-88, performed the most direct part of the operation, descending to the impact zone, identifying survivors, and recovering remains. Equipped with maritime radar, infrared cameras, and hoisting hooks, they are the fleet's hands in rescue and verification missions, capable of acting within minutes of receiving coordinates from the drones and the Poseidon. Flight records indicate that the first helicopter arrived at the impact zone at 6:47 a.m. There, it located 3 individuals floating on debris from the vessel, supported by empty fuel drums. The crew members were extracted by cable hoisting maneuver and transferred to the USS Preble at 7:12 a.m. According to preliminary internal reports, 2 were in critical condition, with second-degree burns and multiple fractures. The third, a man about 35 years old, was conscious and reportedly tried to speak with rescuers before being sedated. As the day closed, the Department of Defense did not confirm the identity or nationality of the survivors, although Venezuelan intelligence sources claimed that one of them was a regular crew member of the San Miguel II, a Venezuelan fishing vessel registered in Puerto La Cruz. This coincidence, if true, could indicate that the ship was not transporting drugs, but was a case of misidentification. In Washington, the news of the survivors caused a stir. From the West Wing of the White House, President Donald Trump ordered an emergency meeting with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and senior commanders of the National Security Council. According to a source close to the meeting, the president demanded a full report before 2 p.m. and asked for all videos of previous attacks to be reviewed for possible intelligence failures. At 10:35 a.m., the Pentagon spokesperson offered a brief statement to the press. Without directly mentioning the incident, he stated that operations in the Caribbean continue in accordance with international combat standards, and that any result other than anticipated will be subject to internal evaluation. It was the only official communication of the day. For their part, military analysts highlight a key fact: the Pentagon's decision to assign the conduct of the operations to the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, based at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, instead of the traditional Southern Command, headquartered in Miami. This modification, announced days before the attack, was interpreted as a sign that Washington wanted greater operational flexibility and less diplomatic oversight. Furthermore, the early resignation of Admiral Alvin Halsey, head of the Southern Command, fueled suspicions of internal tensions within the U.S. High Command. His departure, initially scheduled for 2027, was moved up for personal reasons, although Senate members such as Jack Reed noted that the measure reflects concern over a possible direct confrontation with Venezuela. As the afternoon progressed, Latin American intelligence channels reported unusual activity in the Caribbean skies. 2 F-35 Lightning. 2 fighters took off from the Curaçao Air Base and performed tactical formation patrol flights, while a KC-135 tanker aircraft maintained logistical support at 10,000 meters, about 33,000 feet, altitude. At 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, October 16, 2025, while the Pentagon maintained silence, The news of the attack with survivors already occupied the main headlines in Caracas, Havana, and Madrid. The first international reactions were quick to arrive. In a statement issued from Brussels, the European Union expressed deep concern over the military escalation in the Caribbean and asked the United States to clarify the status and conditions of the rescued crew members. Spain's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for its part, requested that the rules of international humanitarian law be respected, while Mexico and Brazil convened emergency meetings of their national security councils. Simultaneously, in Washington, markets reacted nervously. The price of Venezuelan oil rose 4.2% in less than an hour, and U.S. defense indices increased following rumors of a possible military reinforcement in the region. At 7:15 p.m., a source from the National Security Council confirmed to the press that the U.S. fleet in the Caribbean had received orders to maintain a state of maximum alert for the next 48 hours. Geopolitics experts recalled that this is the first time since the Gulf of Paria crisis in 1982 that a clash between the United States and Venezuela has left survivors who could testify about the operations. Their version of the events, if it becomes known, could alter the official narrative and have judicial consequences in the International Criminal Court. During the early morning of October 17, 2025, the U.S. government finally issued its first official statement on the attack. At 2:10 a.m., Pentagon spokesman General Patrick Ryder confirmed that 3 people were rescued after the destruction of a hostile vessel linked to Venezuelan drug trafficking. He added that one of them died from injuries sustained and that the other 2 are receiving medical attention in secure facilities under U.S. military custody. He did not offer their names, nor specify which base they are at. The document insisted that the operation fully complied with international laws and was part of the Hemispheric Security Counter-Narcotics campaign. However, it avoided answering whether the survivors would be handed over to civilian justice or treated as enemy combatants. That legal ambiguity opened a new front of criticism in the U.S. Congress. Several Democratic senators demanded an independent investigation, while human rights organizations like Amnesty International classified the attack as a possible maritime war crime. In Caracas, the Maduro government filed a formal protest with the UN, denouncing the kidnapping of Venezuelan citizens and requesting sanctions against Washington. Russia and China reiterated their support for the Venezuelan claim, warning that the U.S. military presence in the Caribbean seriously alters regional stability. The operation, conceived as a surgical strike against drug trafficking, ended up exposing political fractures, diplomatic tensions, and an ethical dilemma of proportions. In less than 24 hours, the Caribbean Sea once again became a scenario of dispute between powers. And although the missiles have been silenced, the consequences of that dawn continue to propagate like an invisible wave over the waters of the conflict. Before closing, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that the United States acted within the limits of international law, or that this attack marks a new stage of tension in the Caribbean? Leave your comment with your point of view. Was it legitimate defense, a tactical error, or a covert political maneuver? Because this case could redefine the rules of the game in modern military operations.